The story of computed tomography starts in 1895 with Wilhelm Rontgen, a German experimental physicist who was at that time experimenting with Crookes vacuum tubes. Now, it was known at that time that when an electrical discharge from an induction coil passed through such a tube, that an electron beam was created, which then converted into light when it hit the glass edge of the tube. Now, one day, Rontgen added an aluminum window to this vacuum tube so that the electron beam could exit. And to protect the aluminum, he put a cardboard box around it. He switched off the light in his lab and turned on the induction coil, when all of a sudden, at the other end of the room, a barium platinocyanide screen that was on a table a few meters away started to light up. Clearly, some special kind of strange was happening here, as normal light could not exit the light-proof box. A new type of ray had to be responsible. And not exactly understanding the origin of these rays, Rontgen named them X-rays, after the symbol X that in mathematics typically stands for the unknown. Now, in the following days and the following weeks, Rontgen repeated his experiments and investigated the properties of his X-rays. When he took the first X-ray image of his wife's hand, she was convinced that she had seen her death. And a few weeks later, Rontgen published his findings in his paper on a new kind of rays, for which in 1901 he was to receive the Nobel Prize in Physics. Now, it didn't take long for the world to embrace this technology, and doctors soon started using X-ray imaging for diagnostic purposes, which, in hindsight, was not such a terribly great idea. But the story does not end there. In 1917, the Austrian mathematician Johann Radon introduced a transformation operator that defines a projection of a certain function by an infinite series of straight line integrals, a bit like what happens in X-ray images. More importantly, however, he also introduced the inverse radon transform and noted that if the radon transform is known from all different directions, then the original function can be exactly reconstructed, which is of course exactly what we want to achieve in tomographic reconstruction. Now, due to the computational complexity of the radon transform, it took another 40 years before the inverse radon transform could be applied to X-ray images. In 1963, Alan Cormack laid out the mathematical basics for a practical implementation for tomographic reconstruction. And in 1971, at the EMI research laboratories, which at that time had some money to spare thanks to some other guys, Sir Godfrey Hounsfield validated Cormack's work by building the first prototype CT scanner and by making the first reconstruction of a human head. Both Cormack and Hounsfield received the 1979 Nobel Prize for Medicine. And of course, since then, advances in computer science and in X-ray technology have greatly improved the CT scanners that you will find in your local hospital. Modern machines work much faster and are able to achieve a much higher resolution at a much lower radiation dose.